All right. So Romans 9, 10, and 11 is a section sort of in itself, and it's about Jewish rejection of Jesus, Gentile acceptation of Jesus, and in a roundabout way, God using that to resave the Jewish people. Okay, that's basically what Romans 9, 10, and 11 is about. God pulls back from the Jewish people, and they don't believe. And as a result of their unbelief, the Gentiles get in on the covenants, the new covenant, right? This is a new covenant in my blood. Jesus says, when the Holy Spirit comes, you will receive power. This is Acts. And when he comes, I want you to be witnesses in Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and then the ends of the earth. Right? In Matthew 28 says, go into the world and make disciples of all nations. Not just Jewish, all nations. Baptizing them in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Teaching them to obey everything I've commanded. Okay, so that's us. We are the all nations. And the salvation has come to us 2,000 years later. And it's kind of amazing that this thing is still going and growing. It's still moving and growing. And you can take a drive through whatever, Wilkinsburg, Penn Hills, Monroeville, and just see churches all over the place. And this started way back in Jerusalem in about 0, to 33 AD. It's really profound if you think about it. For those who want to deny the power of Jesus, how do you explain 2,000 years later, churches erected to this guy everywhere? It's one of the great sort of apologetics to Christianity is that, okay, how do you explain all the churches? How do you explain, people coming every Wednesday night when they could be out doing something else? Power of God, okay? So, that's interesting. So, Romans 11 concludes with this. What's up, dude? We could all hear you whistling. We're all like, we hear somebody whistling. John the Baptist in the building. So, Romans 11 ends with Paul saying this, verse 32. For God has bound all men over to disobedience so that he might have mercy on them all. Okay, and the all there in the context of Romans 9, 10, and 11 is what? Who is the all? Jews and Gentiles. Okay, so God allows Jewish people to go over to disobedience. He allows Gentile people to go over to disobedience. We're going to look at Romans 3, Romans 3:23 later. For all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. Okay, that's all, like Jew, Gentile, all people. Okay, so that he might have mercy on them all. If anyone is saved, Jew or Gentile, it's because God has had mercy on them. Okay, and so as a conclusion, Romans 9, 10, and 11, Paul writes this doxology, and he breaks into this praise of God. Okay, oh, the depth of the riches of the wisdom and knowledge of God. How unsearchable his judgments and his paths beyond tracing out. Who has known the mind of the Lord, or who has been his counselor, or who has ever given to God that God should repay him? For from him and to him and through him and to him are all things. To him be the glory forever. Now, we've looked at each one of these verses in great depth, except for verse 36. Okay, so last week, you remember, we looked at verses 34 and 35, and those were both taken from Isaiah 40 and Job 41. Remember that Leviathan and God having the waters in the hollow of his hand and measuring the mountains as dust on the scales. Okay, that was last week, and we looked at those verses. So now I want to try to finish tonight with verse 36. And this concludes the section, and then we move on to sort of, if you will, practical living, spiritual gifts, authority and government, and all types of practical, everyday life issues. Okay? So, here we go. Verse 36. From him, through him, to him, all things. Okay? Here's basically what this is saying. God is the source of, you name it, everything. Okay? From God came everything we know. Period. Okay? Happiness, sadness, relationships, artwork, color, oceans, things in the ocean, universes, spirit beings, okay, whatever, put it there, name it, from him. Now, through him, meaning it came through him. Now, more specifically in the scriptures, who is the him that it came through? I'm thinking of like 3 or 4 passages in the New Testament. We have to go there then. Okay, go to John chapter 1. And some of these passages are going to be very familiar to you guys, but I know for some of you they aren't. Okay, and so look at them in a new light. If you're like, yo, I've read this 100 times already, look at it in a new light. John chapter 1. Remember that the New Testament starts Matthew, Mark, Luke, then John. Chapter 1. Okay. In the beginning was the Word. Okay, now this beginning here, way back to before creation. That's beginning. Okay, in the beginning, like before anything was. That's the beginning. In the beginning was the Word. Okay, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Okay, in the beginning was this, the Greek word there is logos. Okay, and this book of John was written to Greeks, non-Jewish people who didn't have the Old Testament. That's why it's good for like non-Christians to read the book of John, because he reasons in a non-Jewish thinking kind of way. Hey, so there's a couple chairs here and one in the back. There, you're good. So, in the beginning was this Word, okay? And this Word was with God. That's referring to God the Father. And He was God. Okay? So now we have 2 beings that are God. This Word that was with God, and this Word was Himself God. 2 different people. Through Him, okay, that's the second Word that was with God. Okay, the second person of the Trinity, Jesus Christ. Through Him, all things were made. Without Him, nothing was made that has been made. In Him was life, and that life was the light of men. The light shines in the darkness, but the darkness has not understood it. Okay, and then it breaks into this guy named John the Baptist, and then in verse 10, it comes back to Jesus. He was in the world, and though the world was made through Him, the world did not recognize Him. He came to that which was His own, Jewish people, but His own did not receive Him. Yet to all who received Him, to those who believed in His name, He gave the right to become the children of God. Children born not of natural descent, nor of human decision, nor of a husband's will, but born of God. The Word became flesh and made His dwelling among us, and we have seen His glory, the glory of the one and only, who came from the Father, full of grace and truth. Okay, this is huge. It's talking about this Word that was with God, that was God, and this Word, through Him came all things. Okay, remember? From Him, through Him, to Him are all things. And then it says this profound thing, that this Word became flesh, person, man, bleeding, sweating, going to the bathroom, eating fruit and eating fish and eating bread. The one that everything came through became one of what He made. Okay, that is mind-blowing when you really think about it. My friend Tim Brendel said it like this. Let me ask you if you seem confused with this. God passed through His own creature's uterus. What? Okay, think about that. Okay, God creates all things and then decides to Himself become what He creates. Okay, and this one who we know as Jesus is this one from Him and through Him and to Him all things came. Okay, let's